Institute of Policy Studies of Sri Lanka. So in this third webinar series, today our topic is future of e-commerce in South Asia. As we all know, e-commerce actually has taken deep roots in developed countries, not so much in developing countries and LDCs, although we have started seeing an emergence of this trend. And with COVID-19, as we all know, e-commerce seems to be taking root in the developing countries and least developed countries as well, with businesses also resorting to e-commerce, as well as consumers also taking this as a means of taking safety measures in terms of purchasing products. But there are a lot of issues, whether it is about infrastructure or regulatory and policy regimes. So today we have a very good panel. We will be listening from people who are into e-commerce, who have studied e-commerce, who have been studying e-commerce, who are into the business of e-commerce. So we are looking forward to a very interesting discussion today. Before I hand over to the moderator for the session, let me introduce our moderator. He is Dr. Ratnagar Adhikari. Dr. Adhikari is the Executive Director of the Enhanced Integrated Framework EIF Secretariat at the WTO. Dr. Adhikari is also the co-founder of SOTI and also its former Executive Director. Dr. Adhikari will introduce our keynote speaker and the panelists. So with these words, over to you, Dr. Adhikari.
Thank you, Pushpa, for that kind introductory remark and the introduction as well. Good afternoon, speakers and participants. Delighted to be here with you this afternoon to moderate the session on the future of e-commerce in South Asia. This event reminds me of a similar event that was organized by SOTI in November 2017 in Kathmandu. It was a similar topic, but then the difference is that the modality is different, the context is different, and the composition of panel is different as well. So we have tried to make this panel as gender balanced as possible, and as from South Asia also as country balance to the extent possible. Unfortunately, we don't have anybody from Afghanistan, Bangladesh and Maldives, but we have tried to sort of bring other countries on board. So before we start the session, I would like to make 3 points. First and foremost, e-commerce sales has reached 25.6 trillion globally in 2018, and this seems to be increasing, and that represents almost 30% of the global GDP. So within that 25.6 trillion, 83% according to UNCTAD, and thanks to Samika for doing this good work there. The B2B, the business to business e-commerce represent 83%, but the business to commerce also is a very useful area to look at, because that's growing rapidly. Because of COVID-19 and the lockdown of various types, the e-commerce is becoming a default mode of transaction for a number of customers, and this can be seen by the fact that not only the entry of new customers to the e-commerce platform is increasing, but the retention rate has also been very high, and one can see this by achieved, including Amazon, which is one of the largest e-commerce platforms. The sales have increased by 42% in the last 6 months period. And this is a business which has made somebody the owner of opportunities and challenges for South Asia. Here, South Asia offers tremendous opportunity because it represents 1/4 of the global humanity. According to the World Bank report that was published last year, Unleashing E-commerce for South Asia Integration, the e-commerce transaction as a percentage of total retail sales is still very, very limited, given the fact that the global sales is 14%. The sales in China is around 15%, whereas in India, it's 1.6%, and in Bangladesh, it's 0.7%. So that's very limited. But there is a huge potential if you look at it as a glass half full, as one of our friends and colleagues from South Asia has Sanjay Kathuria had put it, a glass half full, then we can say that starting with a low base, it has a tremendous potential. But there are three major challenges. One relates to infrastructure, second one relates to skill, and the third one relates to policy and regulations, including payment solution. One of the horizontal issues that that we need to address as well is how e-commerce how inclusive e-commerce has been so far, and what can be done in order to make it more inclusive. The third point that I would like to make is the role of partnership, collaboration, and cooperation, because e-commerce ecosystem is much larger than we can imagine, with several actors within the government, private sector, and international organization plus think tank working towards making a situation better for small entrepreneur in particular. And this is particularly important for B2C, business to consumer e-commerce, because a weak link in the supply entire chain could destroy the reputation of the supplier. One bad review can destroy the reputation of the supplier. Therefore, one has to be extremely careful to ensure that the coordinated approach is taken. At the global level, also, there's a lot of coordination happening and collaboration happening. Samika will explain to us about the E-Trade for All initiative that UNCTAD has launched, where a number of international organizations, including WTO, ITC, and EIF participate, and as well as that e-commerce joint initiative has been launched in the during the Buenos Aires Ministerial Conference of the WTO, and there are some separate discussions going on there. So with these words, I would like to now start the session. We have speakers from various governmental, intergovernmental, and private sector organizations. I would like to really request the speakers to provide us, rather than what, how to, how to resolve the problem, how to tap into the opportunities. So I would really like to encourage all of you to do that. Let me first introduce our keynote speaker, Honorable Sandana Gulzar Khan, who is the chairperson of the Commonwealth Women Parliamentarians Network and a member of the National Assembly of Pakistan. A legal professional with extensive knowledge and experience in international trade, economic law, and policy. She has written on Pakistan's first intellectual property framework, e-commerce policy, and geographical indication law. Honorable Khan, I would like to request you to deliver your keynote speech.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Dr. Adhikari, and thank you also to Mr. Pushpa. It's a pleasure to be here. Post-COVID, life has become a little funny for all of us, I think we're all adapting to a new post-COVID, hopefully post-COVID world. In Pakistan, we're lucky. We are going through a dip in our COVID cases. We're expecting a second wave, but according to some people, we're going to the second wave right now. And if this is it, thank God, because it's very limited. We have excellent, in the last 6 months, we've really managed to bring ourselves together, put our house in order, and perhaps it's also an indicator for the resilience of the Southeast Asian region and network. Dr. Adhikari might not know this, but I have written a long time. I used to write articles for Sauti as well, and I still keep copies of it. Used to be an intellectual property. By profession, I'm a trade lawyer, and right now I seem to be in the other side of the domain, which is policy making. I've worked in Geneva for nearly 7 years on different aspects of trade, and it's really welcome to hear that the WTO, along with other international organizations, are looking at e-commerce. Since 3 areas were mentioned by Dr. Adhikari, I'd like to speak on 2 of them in the keynote and give maybe perhaps some a ray of hope. The third thing that Dr. Adhikari mentioned was the logistical part of e-commerce. Surprisingly, that has worked. I'd like to speak from experience, not theory. So surprisingly, that has worked fairly well for Pakistan. We have 12,000 post offices all over Pakistan, and they've been doing a very good job in the last 2 years of this new government. Our main concerns are, number one, issue which was highlighted, which is the issue of policy, and the second issue is of skills. Now, in Pakistan, we do have organizations within the government and private domain, and there are different kinds of skill set delivery teams, if you will. For instance, we have the government vocational schools, we have the provincial, federal and provincial vocational schools. That's my personal opinion that I'm out of touch with reality. Still train people in what we call old subjects. Next, we have a host of private sector incubators, private sector accelerators, which are working mostly on IT and high tech. Now, given that education in Pakistan is not at the same level as Germany, therefore, it would be hard for me to say that we've covered that market in terms of imparting skills. But perhaps what is the key problem, right, has been a key problem for us, policy side. Nearly 2.5 years ago, when I was still a consultant for the Commerce Ministry, we got into trouble with the State Bank and our federal and provincial tax authorities. We realized that since e-commerce is so new in Pakistan, and this is well over 3 years ago, people were not willing to accept. They're willing to pay for the same services when they travel abroad, but within Pakistan, they were seeing e-commerce as a rival, if you will, to tax revenue generation activities, which was very odd. For instance, in one province, we saw that tax was being collected both on the service itself as a service charge, as well as income tax. For example, if you were to write a consultancy document for somebody, you were going to pay twice. And then that increased because e-commerce is at the intersection between services and goods. And so goods are being delivered, a service is being provided, bank services are being used. And therefore, we found difficulty in controlling the taxation from point of consumption and point of delivery and point of production, as well as where the good was leaving, which province was going to tax it. I've been lucky enough that since 2015, myself and a couple of colleagues, we were working on Pakistan's first e-commerce policy. And in terms of examples, we looked to Hong Kong and some of the other countries that far ahead of others in this field. But we found that the EU regulation system for e-commerce was incredibly helpful because it's a 27 member state coalition. They were able to, keep on updating their legal database, which is odd. Usually you come up with a law, you establish the law and you implement it. But because it's 27 member states that were far ahead in actual e-commerce as opposed to the policy in the EU came late and the action was already happening. So their example is very interesting that they were able to harmonize their laws with their working procedures across 27 different borders, 27 different languages. And that is what we're trying to do in Pakistan right now. And we find that we still have the one problem of provincial versus federal taxation. That is a big barrier pre-corona as well as post-corona to e-commerce proliferation. The second barrier we find is with our state bank, which is our regulator, that we've had terrorism problems in the recent past. And therefore, with FATF as well, dollar accounting is incredibly important for this country. So for us to deregulate and allow players which are in other countries of the world, for example, Amazon or PayPal or eBay, for us, we have to deregulate a portion of our central bank rules. And given the sensitivity of the region, the volatility of the region, we have been cautious to the point of disincentivizing e-commerce operators. Having said that, in this recent government, we've got a new policy called Digital Pakistan. And that Digital Pakistan played an extremely important role in our COVID times. That very Digital Pakistan platform has been able to contain the pandemic. Now, this was, I wouldn't say the most positive experiences, the pandemic itself, but we've learned a lot of lessons that we don't necessarily have to look outside for solutions. The solutions are within. In addition to this, we made our first GI law, which we have made more than 17 years ago. Other countries have also implemented, For us, it is in e-commerce, it is the entire supply chain that counts. So usually countries don't do that when they look at e-commerce. They look at the big laws, they look at the banks and the regulators. For us, it is important to ensure that the smallest, I mean, why are we doing e-commerce to begin with? We have traditional methods of doing trade. We have methods by which we goods and services cross borders. So why e-commerce? And the main reason we realized was, coming from a conservative area of this part of the world, for us, it's extremely important to take jobs to people's homes. Any woman sitting in any part of Balochistan should be able to send her handmade embroidery via Amazon to the rest of the world. So, sorry, was there a break? I think I lost you. Dr. Adhikari, can you still see me?
Yeah, we can hear you. There was a break in the video only. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So anyways, I'll go towards the ending of the keynote. That where policy is the most difficult thing for us, followed by the skill set. Because many women, even the chambers of commerce, the women entrepreneurs, even if we focus on that subset of society, we realized that to mobilize e-commerce just restricted to entrepreneurs, we had to figure out ways to they had access to a mobile, they had access to a computer, access to electricity, because it's easy to make e-commerce platform for those people who are already in business or who have some semblance of education or access to electricity and access to Wi-Fi. For us, the problem is the rest of the country, the 60 to 50% who don't have that or not as privileged. And so we're looking at the least common denominator to ensure that we don't end up creating another elite group, another elite capture, whereby even the proceeds of e-commerce are captured by the biggest and the most powerful in the country. So we are trying on leftist keel, as it were, we're trying to ensure, and that's the hardest part. Most countries, what we've seen they've done is they've gone with the bigger industries, with the bigger communities of IT producers, with the bigger, where there's a bigger mass, there's a bigger revenue. But we've decided we would not do that for e-commerce. We have to have a financial inclusion policy for women entrepreneurs. We have to have a digital inclusion policy. So while work is underway in Commonwealth, I'm happy to say we have some of the best performers of e-commerce. That includes India, that includes UK, that includes New Zealand, that includes Australia, and many other countries in Africa who have done far better than their counterparts. South Africa, their traditional trade is $25 billion and they've been independent only for 25 years of their existence. So there are countries in the Commonwealth that are superstars of e-commerce. And it would be very useful, I think, as a continuing dialogue to look at, and I'm happy to volunteer for that and help, that wherever the Commonwealth, we can get examples of how they have managed to sort of beat the race. With that would be very useful. I'm also happy to share in further events such as this, or even through email, what is it that we're doing in Pakistan and how can the Southeast Asian region benefit from that? Thank you all for listening.
Thank you for your excellent keynote address, Honorable Khan. Actually, I do remember your contribution to SOTI, not only to Trade Insight, but also during a training that we organized for young practitioner back in 2004 in Islamabad, where you were one of our resource persons. So I distinctly remember that. You know, you've highlighted some of these initiatives, Digital Pakistan, and the fact that it is necessary to look at entire supply chain. You know, these are all very important points and well taken. We do understand that you have to leave, but then you will be back soon. We will collect a few questions.
I'll be back soon.
But then, Honorable Khan, there's one question that is a pointed question to you. Would you like to take that right now? Should I go ahead,
Sure,
Honorable
happy
Khan?
to.
Okay, all right. So this is by Asif Khan.
Absolutely.
This is by Asif Khan, who says that everyone knows the e-commerce depends on internet availability and speed. And you probably know very well that in Pakistan, the first problem is the availability of internet, and second is the speed. How could the government handle these issues to encourage e-commerce from flourishing? in Pakistan?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Adhikari, and thank you to Asif as well. As you were aware that we have a ministry for IT, information and technology, and that is working hand in hand with the Ministry of Science and Technology. We have engaged a couple of universities to look at global coverage across Pakistan for internet. It is a huge issue, as I already mentioned, because we might not have been here today had it not been for the global war. For 15 years, we were forced to curtail 3G services. 4G is a new advent, but 2G and 3G we had to sort of curtail. As a result of that, certain areas of Pakistan were left out of the development chain, as it were, which is why I mentioned the word inclusivity. Our problem has been that when we design financial policies, we look at one end goal, which is financial revenues. We don't look at the inclusivity part. Who do we leave out? And which is why the Speaker's Office National Assembly has something called Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. We have a secretariat here. Each one of us members of parliament works there pro bono, and we work on one SDG in particular. I have colleagues who are working on this internet issue as well, on business, on e-commerce. I work on SDG 5, which is specifically for women. But please do assure Asif Khan, this is something we're not looking at in isolation. This is a problem being considered in all of its forms, and inshallah, fairly soon, you'll see results. NITV Pakistan is also working on this.
Thank you. Thank you very much for responding to that question, and we look forward to seeing you again. So thank you. I would like to now move to the panel discussion. For that, I would like to invite our first speaker, Ms. Samika Sirimani, who is the Director of Technology and Logistics Division of UNCTAD, and who is also responsible for leading the e-commerce and trade facilitation related work in her organization, including the E-Trade for All initiative, where they bring all the partners and stakeholders together to provide targeted support to enterprises. So I think, Samika will elaborate more on that. I would like to invite you, Samika, to share your perspective. Go ahead, Samika. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all of you, and very happy to be here. First of all, let me share with you some findings from a survey that we just carried out between June and August 2020, because we wanted to understand what is COVID-19 doing to e-commerce. And respondents were e-commerce businesses and third-party marketplaces in 23 countries. And the survey is not published yet, but I'm very happy to share some information with you. In South Asia, however, our focus has been on Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Nepal. It's because we have assisted these countries to carry out comprehensive e-trade readiness assessments, as Ratnakar, you mentioned. And this is something we have done in collaboration with partners like EIF. And let me now share with you a couple of results. So 57% of surveyed marketplaces saw increase in sales. Okay, the marketplaces seem to be doing well. But only 35% of e-commerce businesses were doing well. So this is pretty much the same results in other countries too. So for some reason, marketplaces seem to be doing better than the e-commerce businesses. And we also find that the social media has been playing an increasingly bigger role, and especially in South Asia, is the first Facebook is the fastest growing, recording fastest growing sales. And the second fastest growth channel relate to telephone channels such as text messages. Of course, this is understandable. This also reflects the weak access to internet, as well as limited digital skills, and especially in rural areas. And interestingly, we also see that the e-payments are picking up as a whole through different methods, such as e-banking, it could be mobile banking, and also mobile money. But nonetheless, cash still remains the most common payment method, and which I will come back to a bit later. It raises the questions related to the overall trust in e-commerce and digital payment solutions. And then we asked the survey respondents to tell us what are the biggest challenges that they have been facing. And the top 5 that came through in South Asia are very much in line with the overall findings across all the 23 countries. It's interesting, I think some of you already mentioned, interestingly, supply chain logistics delivery issues top the challenges. You know, again and again, various aspects of logistics, basically trade facilitation issues come to the fore. And then of course, the internet affordability is another big issue identified by e-commerce businesses and especially in South Asia. As you know, internet is most affordable in Sri Lanka, followed by India, and it is most expensive in Nepal, followed by Afghanistan. I mean, talking about this is as a percentage of people's income. And then you see, I'm very happy to say, so, you know, it seems like there's a lot needs to be done to capitalize the benefits from e-commerce, but I must say that I'm very happy to see that since the e-trade readiness assessments, these 3 countries have taken concrete steps to build an enabling environment. And I'm sure it's the same in across the board in all countries in South Asia. I think there is the motivation to capture benefits. Now, for example, Ratnaka, we were talking about Nepal the other day. You know, Nepal has come up with a national e-commerce strategy, and this was developed in 2019, and this task force has been put in place, and this is all triggered by the e-trade readiness assessment that we all did together. And Bhutan, e-trade readiness assessment is used as a master guideline for e-commerce development and also the e-commerce policy development. I understand that it is in the final stage. So now I think you mentioned, I just wanted to talk about this for potential. Ratnakar, you mentioned that the global e-commerce in 2018 reached 25.6 trillion. Also want to add that it grew 8%, you know, from 2018 to 2017 to 2018. And this is happening at a very, when the global economy in a very, not doing well. Basically, the global economy is in doldrums and the international trade numbers are not going up. But we see the e-commerce numbers are growing 8% a year, and this is big. So of course, it's the whole e-commerce digital economy is creating new opportunities. And as Honorable Khan mentioned, you know, it is going to help the small businesses, and especially women, and opening new ways of generating income for young people. But just want to, I think this is coming through this discussion, you know, the positive development gains are not automatic. You see, many developing countries, especially LDCs, are still inadequately prepared to capture. These are some of these things we have been already being put on the table: the connectivity, the affordability, and even when people have access to internet, if there is no trust in internet, you will not undertake online transactions. And here, South Asian countries still have some ways to go to have not just relevant laws in place, but also to be enforced to protect online consumers and the data of internet users. Unless these things are done, even if I have access, I would not use, I would not go on internet. Now, just want to, this is my last point. I think I want to emphasize something that's very clearly coming out of our work in South Asia and also confirmed by the survey. It's the importance of efficient logistics. You see, if you cannot deliver goods ordered online fast, then e-commerce will not be attractive. So trade facilitation, I know it's an old issue. You know, it's probably a boring issue. It's not too fashionable, but it becomes extremely important. And automation of trade procedures is critical to engage in cross-border e-commerce, to do this fast delivery, fast clearance. And our experience with UNCTAD's Asikuda program, which is in many South Asian countries, show that customs is the most prepared. So the problem is not so much at the customs, because they have the equipment, they have the IT skills. A lot more needs to be done with post offices, express courier delivery, and the rest of the government agencies to handle this so-called tsunami of small parcels. So just to say that the yes, trade facilitation is an old issue, but it takes a new significance in this emerging world of e-commerce. And paying greater attention to trade facilitation would pay off. Of course, there are many issues, but please consider this as an important one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samika, for covering a number of points during your 5 minutes intervention, including the survey, the fact that e-payment is picking up, and the issue of trust is so important. It's not only relating to the cash being the dominant form of payment, but also the trust on the services such as internet and others. The whole gamut of issues are important there, and also some of the follow-up actions that have been undertaken as after the e-trade readiness assessment that you've highlighted. And I'm just looking at the some of these chat box questions and observations. So one of the colleagues has mentioned that Nepal is currently preparing e-commerce legislation, e-commerce law. So this is in the draft stage, which is a good news, I guess, following after the strategy that was prepared by the government, and one of the authors of the strategy is also with us today. Maybe you'll have something to mention later. And then the final point that you made, which is important, is that the logistics and trade facilitations are important. The reason I didn't highlight them as the major challenge is that there are other issues that are equally important. But I completely agree with you, because these are challenges facing brick and mortar companies as well. But at the end of the day, when you are talking about the speed, efficiency, value for money, then the automation of the trade facilitation infrastructure, not only customs, but others would also be equally important. So we'll probably hear more perspective later. Thank you once again, Samika. Now let me move to our second speaker, Mr. Pramod Chetri, who is the General Manager of Royal Security Exchange of Bhutan, and who has around 17 years of experience in the field of information technology and project management, both in Bhutan and abroad. One of the important things that he may want to highlight is the fact that on the supply side of e-commerce, Bhutan is doing a lot of work, and Mr. Chetri himself has been overseeing the implementation of machine grading and online auctioning of commodities, including potato, in collaboration with Food Corporation of Bhutan. So we are actually partnering, EIF is partnering with Bhutan on this important initiative. So in your intervention, you might want to share your perspective on the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for Bhutan. Please.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Mr. Ratnakar. Just to share on the e-commerce development before I go to the perspective of commodity exchange that stock exchange is doing. It's just been around 2 to 3 years, I think, because I was there when the Trade Ministry started to draft the regulation for e-commerce businesses. Prior to that, businesses were we termed it as quite informal, because it just started. There was no formal structure for them, and quickly a regulation was set, and then the businesses started to come. And these are very small businesses which started from supply of groceries, and then finally it innovated of selling tickets online, and new things started to come. I should highlight the challenges highlighted by other speaker, the most important on logistic. What interestingly happened, because we just passed a COVID lockdown phase, and in the lockdown, it was the only e-commerce that would supply the goods. It was only e-commerce. You're not allowed to move out. So there was around, in a day, this few businesses got around 1,000 of orders, and immediately everything crashed because there is no logistic to arrange so much of demand immediately. So I think logistic, it's a huge challenge. I feel that is a different animal that needs to come along when we are talking about e-commerce. If that is not standardized, if it doesn't hold a proper ground, then the whole thing falls apart, because the next day we saw the whole e-commerce site were down. So this is what we practically faced. And however, right after the COVID, the orders came down, crashing down. And this is what I was discussing with the e-commerce guy today. Having said that, the challenge on COVID, when we were locked down, at least we could meet certain percentage of the demand. At least there was something which did answer the call. So that is the positive impact that we need to see. Looking at that standards, in 2017, what we implemented as a stock exchange, we wanted to implement it. We wanted to, help the farmers, especially Bhutanese farmers, because interesting thing in Bhutan, because we talk about 54% to 56% are farmers, and if they really produce, on a mass scale, who's going to eat that? We are just 700,000. It's extremely important we sell this. How do we sell it? Geographically, the places are very, it's a mountainous country and all. So the idea, the most important idea we felt is bring standardization, bring e-commerce, technical tool, standardize the product and sell it online. Online also, as it is a commodity exchange, we had to go ahead and do a price discovery mechanism. And to whom we are selling? We are selling to the traders in our border areas. That is, our border is with Indian. So we are selling to the Indian traders. Now the issue that we faced when we started in 2017 is advocacy. Because the audience we are talking about are farmers. They will not understand what is going on. And the experience they have for the last 30, 40 years of selling their produce is selling it directly. Go there, talk to the traders, go to the auction yard, put the goods there and sell it. That is it. And now when we come and tell them, okay, this is the best possible way, international standard, you'll get a better pricing. However, things became more complicated when we started talking with the traders. Similar to the farmers, traders were also like the farmers, they also didn't understand anything about technology. So I think advocacy becomes a very important part, and how to explain to them. Literally, we had to request them to come and grade and then put your orders 2 to 3 times. We did an iteration of 2 to 3 times. After that, farmers understood there was a difference, because when we standardized the product, there was a considerable gain to their produce. The purchasing price, we were seeing around $420 per truckload increase. And the traders also were benefiting on many aspects, because when they were trading manually, the standardization cost was there, which was now done by the machine. The labor cost goes down. So there are so many additional costs they could see to put this pricing into the competition. Better to put it in the competition and see a better price. So what was happening when we started in 2017, a very slow start. 2018, yes, people started to come, and then there was quite a lineup. And slowly in 2019, I think after a lot of advocacy throughout the regions, people started to call and say that we want to trade it online. Now that is the first phase of our success. I think the first phase when people started calling, okay, we want to trade online. And then we finally got another success point from the traders. The traders started trading through just by making calls. Before, they used to come to the auction pit, see the produce, then put their price. Now the trading was happening at 8 at evening, at 8 at night, and they don't have to really see the produce because it has been standardized. So that was, I think, the success point until this COVID hit and the whole lockdown phase happened, and our borders are closed right now. For this year, we have no experience right now. We are still waiting, but uh, our future prospect of what we want to do with this trading is to our regions. The farmers, usually our border areas are, the farmers have to travel all the way to the borders and sell their produce. So now what we want to do is have this standardization process in their area, specific area, connect all this specific area into a trading platform and let the traders come online, and the farmers, no need for them to go travel far away, increasing their cost of sale. So that is the major idea, to connect all the regions and let the world slowly see the produce of organic produce. Like there's been a huge trading in potato. We are moving into cardamom. We are trying hard for cardamom, and then there is cordyceps. We want to try that as well. Most importantly, what e-commerce will help is it will help these small farmers as well, because when we see small farmers, they were never involved in trading, because for them, if it is around 20 bags or 30 bags of potato, for them cost of selling is so high, they have to either merge with somebody or they have to give it away in a throwaway price. So what is going to happen is, when we arrange this logistic, they can simply deposit the goods into a warehouse. The warehouse will standardize and then sell it as larger extent. So this is what our future goal is for the commodity exchange. And I'm sure this is going to benefit the farmers, and slowly e-commerce have started, I think, in Bhutan, but the regulatory part of our reserve management and all those factors are there, how it will be, how the impact will be. Most importantly, what we see right now, e-commerce just started in Bhutan. I think through the competition, it will grow.
Sorry to interrupt you, Pramod.
Yes.
So you've actually you can highlight, Pramod. Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. Apology. You can highlight these aspects, during the second round, when I would be asking you question on the scaling up, maybe, or your future plan. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, because there's a time limit. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Particularly the issues that you've highlighted, logistics issues, the issue of trust, the advocacy, it resonates with other countries in the region also. It's a typical example of small country perspective that you have beautifully highlighted here, which would immensely enrich the discussion that would follow. Thank you so much, Pramod, once again for that. Now, let me move to the private sector. We've heard perspective from the governments. We've heard perspective from intergovernmental organization. Excuse me. Let me move to the private sector, who will provide real life examples of challenges and opportunities facing a relatively small e-commerce businesses, and particularly in the context of COVID-19. So our third panelist is Ms. Deepali Gotagde, founder and business owner of Web Dreams, Hubli, Karnataka. She has been in e-commerce business for almost 2 decades, and she is a consultant to UNESCAP for a project to build e-commerce capacity of South Asian women entrepreneurs. There's a lot that to read from her CV or the CV of any one of you. Maybe I would like to request organizers to send the CV to all the participants, so that they can look at those and possibly come back at a later stage with additional questions. So over to you, Dipali.
Yeah, good afternoon and namaste. So, I started e-commerce business in the year 2000. Now, since 20 years, I'm in the e-commerce business and I face many challenges. So, from entrepreneur angle, let me point out some of the challenges which I practically faced. So, first challenge was the payment gateway. 20 years back, there was no payment gateway in India. It was International Payment Gateway CC Avenue, which I used to use, and which was charging very high transaction commission. It was 7%. And now also, after so many years, when through UNSCAP and with the partnership with EIF, we had e-commerce capacity building workshop for women entrepreneurs at Nepal, Bangladesh, and Bhutan. I could find a similar challenge because still the payment gateways are not very flexible. Even in Nepal, the travel agencies and all can accept the payment online, but if they want to do some transactions like refund and paying out of Nepal through other currencies, they were facing challenges. When we were talking to Bhutan women entrepreneurs, even they told that the only one payment gateway is existing, but it has its own limitations and it doesn't accept many ways of payments like UPI and all. So I think the problem will be solved if we have very good wallet kind of payments, which we have in India, like Paytm and Google Pay and all. So that should be there to for all these LDCs to grow in e-commerce field. And supply chain and logistic is a really major challenge, as mentioned by Ms. Shamika also and other panelists also. But my basically e-commerce model was drop shipping model, means I was not stocking anything and sending anything. It was through the vendor channel all over India. We deliver fresh flowers and cakes. So there is one more option, like you can have vendor network, and that can be a good solution. And nowadays, if you see, there are countries attacking even through cyber attacks. So cyber crime is very, very crucial and important challenge, because even I had cyber crime on my website in the year 2009, and that time I lost around 2 lakh rupees because a cyber criminal was using stolen credit cards on my site with different IP addresses and different credit card numbers. So when I went to lodge the complaint in 2009, that too I live in a second tier city in India, police were not even aware what is cybercrime, and they opened the dictionary to find out what is cybercrime. So even I'm sure now also, especially South Asia and in India, Nepal, these countries, still we don't have proper system to tackle the cyber criminals. Also, we don't have awareness about how it can happen. There are so many ways, like the data can be stolen, and even selling user data is a big business. So I am sure that this system and these laws should be in place so that the e-commerce will flourish and grow year after year. Also, I face challenges like copyrights and patenting, because we used to sell embroidered items, embroidered apparels, and we created our own unique embroidery designs. And even I modeled for my e-commerce portal. I used to wear saris and display, and my photographs were copied at various places, not only online, even offline. They're not for any bad use, but definitely because I was not having any kind of copyright and any kind of patenting in place, I was not aware of the laws. So now when we are planning for so many items for women entrepreneurs through our e-commerce portals, I'm sure they should be aware to protect their product and their copyrights. So data loss, hacking, cybercrime, and copyrights, these main issues I elaborated here. And also when we go online, all these small firms, even all SMEs, they have a chance to stand next to the all successful e-commerce giants. So all are at one level, and then when they go online, they think that I have developed the e-commerce portal and I should start getting business now. Even if they register to any marketplace, they feel that they're already registered and they should start getting business. But that is not true, because unless you rank well in Google, unless you build your brand, unless you build a customer base through internet marketing, which is called as digital marketing, you will not get business. So the only creation of e-commerce store won't help. You need to have digital marketing training and also digital marketing support for your e-commerce business. So that is very important, and we need to have trainings for SMEs in this sector. But it's very good because in digital marketing you can always measure the outcome, not like traditional marketing. So it is very efficient, and for that we should increase more technology and digital marketing awareness. The fifth what I thought is like statutory requirements for a business to go online, like trade license, because in Bangladesh the women told us that even they need to have offline. um, am I there?
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
very much. Yeah.
Even they need offline store to get the trade license to sell online. So that is not very clear for entrepreneurs, what all licenses, what kind of taxation they need to do, what kind of registration should be done. So such things policy wise uh, and restrictive regulations are there. So these things should be kept in place. So when we do all this and when we have affordable internet and easy internet access, we'll definitely grow in the field of e-commerce. And e-commerce has given me livelihood, name, and now I'm working with such good organizations, international ones. So definitely I'm the example that e-commerce is a boon for any entrepreneur. So thank you.
Thank you. Particularly the last point that you made. So it is definitely a boom for entrepreneur. Particularly the important other important points also you have highlighted, not only the challenges but also the opportunities that lie ahead. But then those challenges that you've listed, including logistical challenge, a skill challenge, payment solution related challenge, licensing, affordable and accessible internet, these are all valid points that you've raised. And I particularly like your intervention, given the fact that you've not confined yourself to India, but also brought example from other countries in the region, which is quite illuminating. So thank you very much, Dipali. Now I would like
Dr.
to move.
Arigan. Thank
I
you.
would like to now move to our final speaker, who is Ms. Suraksha Adhikari, who is the co-founder and Chief Operating Officer of Tulo.com. And Tulo, many of you who don't know in Nepali, means big. So it's big.com. You can translate it that way in English. So big.com business for the past 7 years, as she is currently implementing a project together with her partners to provide market access and visibility to women entrepreneurs in Nepal. So over to you, Suraksha, for your 5-minute intervention to begin with.
Thank you so much. After hearing the amazing speakers and the insights on e-commerce and technology logistics, I'd like to draw your attention towards the challenges faced by us as e-commerce operators during the COVID-19 lockdown, and mention the strategies we undertook to address those challenges and overall learnings. Basically, I'd like to focus on two challenges, two major challenges, I'd say. Firstly, we had a challenge of maintaining the safety of our staffs and customers also. So for this, we equipped delivery crew with the PPEs, we call it, personal protective equipment, mask, sanitizers, gloves, etc., so that to avoid the risk of virus transmission at the time of delivery. To add to this, we also shifted fully to online payment systems for receiving the payments, which otherwise depended mostly on COD, cash on delivery model. And due to this, we're able to gain a lot of trust from our customers for maintaining the safety of our staffs and customers. So secondly, it was about logistics. We had problems with both sourcing and delivery. In case of sourcing of products, there was inadequate supply of products in the market in terms of required quantity or variety, size, model, color, etc. And this had an impact in our order fulfillment. There used to be incomplete delivery. We had to invest a lot of time and energy in customer support, which was also very cost ineffective. So for this, we managed to suggest substitute products to customers and refund the difference. But still, this involved added time, effort, and cost of our customer support staffs. Next, in case of delivery to our customers, there used to be a lot of government authorities interventions during delivery, also changing rules of vehicle movement, difficult timings of vehicle movement, restrictions on delivery on two-wheelers and on the four-wheelers were allowed. So all of these increased our cost, and delivery was very slow. So for this, what we did was we connected with government bodies along with other e-commerce companies, and we collectively obtained necessary support from the Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Supplies, and which when we encountered problems in goods delivery, and also strategies to address the challenges of e-commerce during the recent COVID lockdown. We were able to ensure healthy growth in the grocery segment and fulfill the increased number of orders that we were receiving. And through all the challenges and difficult times, we had two major learnings. Firstly, we realized that there is a need to support local productions. Firstly, because to some extent it provides ease to the sourcing problem, as local productions can be made commercially available even during crisis. However, imported products, they face issues due to trade restrictions during crisis, and this recently happened also. Next, e-commerce startups need to quickly focus more on advancement of e-commerce technology that facilitates smooth business operation, which is more automated, building on a better customer experience in a way that saves time, cost, minimizes human effort, and errors is the need of the hour. Uh, so this was about the challenges we faced and how we tackled during the COVID-19 crisis. And secondly, I'd like to also talk about a project that was accomplished recently. In an effort to address the crisis that was happening, Federation of Women Entrepreneurs Associations of Nepal, together with Emerge and Tulo.com, we launched a campaign on July 8th, and it was a part of a project named Revitalizing Women's Business Amidst COVID-19 Pandemic, and was funded by USAID's Tayar Nepal. I'll briefly explain the background of the campaign and just let you know the results and learnings. During COVID-19 pandemic, a supply chain of majority of women, local women-led micro and small-scale businesses was affected, and hence FWIN, the leading organization, partnered with Tulo.com as a technical partner to promote and sell the products of local women and link them to the digital economy. And the results were highly fulfilling to us, as the actual sales number exceeded the expected sales number by more than 80%. The women were able to generate cash flow from sale of their stocked goods and manage their businesses. And we assume their business performances were improved to some extent. Finally, throughout the project, we had a lot of learnings. And as a technical partner at this project, we would like to say that women, despite having eagerness to enter e-commerce, there's a lot of capacity building required. Also, there's a lack of access to technology in case of majority of women entrepreneurs from marginalized group mostly. And also, there is a gap in understanding the operational procedure of e-commerce. And we hope through continuous learning, they can be quite capable to understand and optimize the the potential of the e-commerce industry. That saying that, I'd like to conclude my introduction.
Thank you very much, Suraksha. The perspective that you've shared, not only about the challenges that you faced and how you were able to tackle those challenges working together with like-minded stakeholders, including the government, and also for highlighting, some of the very important initiative that you are implementing together with the other partner organization. So thank you very much. So in the interest of time now, I mean, we've been having a very good discussion. I think, the deliberation is going extremely well, but then, we are running out of time. So what I would like to propose is, there are a few questions I wanted to ask the panelists as a follow-up, but then I will quickly, not read out, but summarize some of the questions and point them to some of the speakers. For example, Samika, to just take note of the question that Shivraj Bhatta has asked you. It's a pointed question. Has UNCTAD done any study on goods versus services trade in services e-commerce trade in South Asia? Because the e-commerce studies are largely about merchandise study, but then there's a huge potential for services trade as well. If there is anything, please let the participants know. Then Charu Chadda has raised a question to Pramod about the standardization protocol. What was the standardization protocol that was followed at the time of standardizing potato, as you mentioned, Pramod? It would be good to explain that. And my actually question to you, if we have time, would be what is it that you are trying to do to scale up the intervention on the ground? And we also have a question from Abu Saeed Bilal from Bangladesh. Is that the cheap products can, or substandard product can destroy the reputation of not only the companies, but the trust of consumers on e-commerce business as a whole. So what is the mechanism for preventing that from happening? I will probably pose this question to Dipali and Suraksha, if you can respond to that question. Chandran had raised a question on digital marketing, which was responded by Dipali online. Thank you very much, Dipali, for that. And Ravi Vatrai has raised, made a point actually. It's the point that he is trying to make is can be summarized as follows. Yes, insufficiency of logistic infrastructure is an important point, but you have to have the knowledge and confidence in the system to be able to operate effectively. So that's the question that he has raised. Maybe one of you could respond, possibly Suraksha, you want to take up that question? That will be great. The need for the users as well as traders to have the necessary knowledge, skill, confidence, and trust in the system. How that can be achieved. So with these questions, I would really like to invite Samika. Samika, over to you.
Thank you, Ratnakar. We do collect all kinds of data, and these things get reported in our flagship publication, which is called Digital Economy Report. So please check it out. If you type Digital Economy Report UNCTAD, you will get the report, and you will see the chapter 1 of that report is looking at the state of affairs with regard to e-commerce, and we do collect lots of data. But let me tell you, there are no statistics. There's no e-commerce. It's not really like your national statistical officers do not collect data on e-commerce in a very systematic manner, as you do for, as we do for international trade, in goods. So this is a very big area. The definitions are not there. The data is not collected. So a lot more attention needs to be paid for that, because unless you don't know the size of the digital economy, it will be very difficult for all of you, especially the entrepreneurs, to make a convincing case to your finance ministries and your trade ministries to put more money into e-commerce. Because if it is just nobody, if the thing is invisible, it will be very difficult to make a convincing case. Now, so this next question I just wanted to address is this about this. I know there was a lot of discussion about skills and infrastructure, and without these things, it's difficult to do e-commerce. I think I fully agree. But let me tell you this example of Asikuda again, because Asikuda is a customs automation. You know, we go and help countries to develop their custom automation platforms. And this, you cannot get more sophistication, a digital platform than Asikuda. It has all elements. It has data protection, it has all the payment systems, and everything is in there. And we are in 100+ countries in the world, and mostly we are in low-income countries. And where there is no 5G connectivity, where the electricity fails, but with backup plans, with their data centers, the countries have automated their customs and increased their revenues and provided, had cut red tape. So I just want to put a positive kind of a, add some positivity to the discussion. Just because we don't have all the skills that is in the world, we don't have all the best connectivity, but we still can do many things. And this, I have seen people in my division doing that with Asikuda. So just want to let you know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Samika, for your brief remark. Actually, responding to those questions as well, I have another question for you, but then I would like the person, Shyam Dahal, who has a question for you. I would like him to reserve the question and ask you in person, a little later. The other speaker that I would like to invite now to respond to the questions raised by participant is Pramod. Over to you.
Hi. Oh, on the standardization, it was important that the goods that we are trying to sell through online, it was important that it becomes digital. So how do we create a digital note for this product is through standardization. So quickly we came out with protocol and policies that the potato should be identified with variety, size, and with this we came out with 4 standards for the potato, which was machine graded, and then this became the symbol, our digital symbol for that product. So the traders automatically know this. What is this exactly? So interestingly, what we are doing, similar to the cardamom and other goods also, it will be on the classification that the Agriculture Ministry has already stated that will be digitalized. And once it is digitalized, it becomes a symbol, maybe a brand, maybe slowly. So people with that symbol immediately knows what it is. So if it is going to go in a faraway place, they will know where the location is, from where it has come. So those standards have been incorporated. And I think for the next question, when you ask on what are the interventions that we are trying to move ahead, is especially now what we want to do is we want to move towards different countries, give them membership to the commodity exchange so that they can trade directly with our auction yard, and then they could deliver, they could align with logistic facility and deliver it to their produce. So what ultimately it will be, because our closest city in India is Siliguri. So if a Siliguri has a membership, they could do online trading immediately. Likewise, for cordyceps and cardamom, we could go to Singapore, Hong Kong, China. So if that is possible, then as it is done by the stock exchange, the standards are there, protocols are there. It is over the period of time that people will understand the quality and the standard. So this is how we are moving forward. It's a slow process, but we are slowly going ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I now move to Dipali?
Yes, the question was, what about cheap and substandard products? If you try to sell on Amazon, and if your product is cheap and substandard, their refund and the return policy is very strong. So definitely you will get it back, and then your ranking in Amazon also will drop. So there is a very good term which is called as ORM, Online Reputation Management. most of the buyers are reading the ratings and reviews of the seller before buying any product. Also, they are checking in the map what kind of testimonials customers have written about you. So these kind of fake and cheap products will not last long. Maybe initially 1 or 2 sales they will survive. So that's very good about e-commerce, that the refund policy is in place, returns and refund policy.
Okay, thank you very much, Dipali, for responding to that pointed question. Suraksha?
I actually, I'll be answering on the digital marketing question. There's a question actually to Ms. Dipali. I think I was also asked this question. Do you think that digital marketing can be a tangible tool in our South Asian countries to boost our businesses in comparison to the developed nations? Definitely yes, because we can see digital marketing is actually working also in context of Nepal. There are a lot of businesses who have now switched to digital marketing. Digital marketing comprises of a lot of things like content marketing, having a website which is more user-friendly, has a lot of features that users can use and get connected, get engaged. Also having a application app which again can be used to send notifications and different information to your users or to the downloaders. Also, search engine optimization is there. So the ranking in Google also matters. It takes time, but it matters a lot. So digital marketing is growing, and we use Facebook a lot for digital promotion, in which we can do micro targeting, and it is really effective. Um, so yes, digital marketing can be a tangible tool in our South Asian countries, I have to say.
Yeah, even I would like to add here. I see that when we had ESCAP and EAF collaboration workshops in all these South Asian countries, women are selling online through Facebook, through social media. So already they are using digital marketing. Already they are using channels like WhatsApp. Already they are there on Facebook and they know how to create their brand. So this is working even for developing countries and these developed countries. And also somebody asked that what entrepreneurs should know when you are going to start e-commerce. You have to know all the technological details, because there are a lot of cheating also there, because you will not know the web designer what kind of server is using, what kind of technology is using, whether your data is safe or not. So this awareness, this skill set, and this training is required to know about technologies and definitely digital marketing. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Now I've received a message that Honorable Khan is back, and actually I was preserving a question, actually 2 questions for you to respond. Now these all these discussions that are taking place. Honorable Khan, are you with us?
I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. So there are questions around localization and ownership of data from Buddhi Upadhyaya. Cyber security is another issue. Revenue distribution, which you touched upon a bit. And then there's a similar question from Somesh Mathur of IIT Kanpur is how do you deal with protectionist move of data localization in light of cloud computing technologies prevalent all over? However, maybe data privacy, security, and consent use may be important. So these are 2 questions which are essentially related to localization, ownership of data, and cybersecurity, as well as privacy protection. Maybe this is an area where you've done a lot of work. You may be able to respond to those questions. Over to you, Honorable Khan.
Thank you, Dr. Adhikari. I will be able to respond to a limited extent, i.e. I'm not, I wish I were, I'm weak on the IT side. I'm not a digital expert. The most I can do is use my mobile. What I am good at is policy making, or I'd like to think I'm good at policy making. So on the cyber question on data and privacy, we've had a huge drive in, again, COVID in Pakistan. Before this, we've had some limited success with database and information, but it was never commercial. It was always for something what we called the Benazir Income Support Program, which is about giving cash handouts to the most marginalized women in Pakistan. Now, after that, during COVID, and this is a good opportunity as any other to bring this topic up. I know I've brought it up on many forums, but this would be interesting in that we've had, right before COVID, we had started doing big data gathering for the entire government. We have something called the SARS program, and the SARS program is essentially a public sector initiative of this Prime Minister to make sure that the poorest in the country are looked after. And so the data is about their household activity, economic activity, everything. And then comes COVID, and we didn't know how to use that data. Should we, and in terms of protecting that data, but sorry, let me not get ahead of myself. In terms of protecting the data, we don't have a problem. We have very strict cyber crime laws in place. According to some activists like Nigat Das, she feels they might be too strict, but we believe that where there is freedom, there must be responsibility. So freedom in the internet for entrepreneurs must be also commensurate with responsibility, and in particular, when it comes to B2B or B2C matters. And an ancillary move that was made by the government nearly 3-4 years ago, we've created something called the Trade Dispute Resolution Organization. And in that, we're trying to do e-commerce disputes as well. So if, as somebody just mentioned, is the issue of online fraud or consumer protection, we've involved our provincial agencies to make sure that nothing of the sort takes place, i.e. either fraud with the seller, fraud with the buyer. And finally, when it comes to the matter of ensuring data security, as I mentioned already, the Pakistan example, we've been fairly stringent with data. In fact, recently, and this is a funny remark in a lighter vein, just to explain how serious the government is about data protection, certain members of the cabinet requested the Prime Minister's team working in the SARS program for the data to be able to see who is getting what, i.e. which people have access to the finances that the government of Pakistan is doling out. However, the department in case pointed out that once this data becomes public, then how do you protect the price mechanisms, the consumers? Everybody knows everything then. And thirdly, what we've done through the SARS program, there's something called SARS Emergency Cash Transfer. And this is another angle of e-commerce, that we've been able to make sure that nearly 120 million families are brought into the banking fold. Usually in Pakistan, it's very difficult for women to get hold of a bank account without the consent of a male family member. With this particular process, we have done or conducted all the checks and tests that normal commercial banks do. We did it through the government using 2 different banks, government banks, the National Bank, as well as one more government bank. And now we actually have the processes in place. So should these women tomorrow decide they want a bank account, they want a bank loan, or they need to do something related to financing for e-commerce, they have those options available to them now, thanks to what we did during COVID. So I've answered, I think, one part of your question. The second part of your question, you please have to remind me.
That was, I think, we can handle that bilaterally.
Okay.
Given in the interest of time, sorry about that.
Okay.
I'll be connected to you in the future also. We would be speaking together in another e-commerce event, coming up in 2 weeks' time. So we'll have more opportunity to interact. Thank you so much, Honorable Khan. There's actually, I was looking at the possibility of inviting some of the participants to intervene, but also realize the fact that there are so many questions and some of them are even difficult to put together to the speakers. So, and some of the observations are very, very important. So allow me to invite at least 3 participants to make their remark. Shyam Dahal from Asian Development Bank Kathmandu office is one of them. Rajan Ratna from UNESCAP is the second one, and possibly Janardhan Baral from Naya Patrika. And finally, a question from Chandra Kiran Shrestha to everyone. Yes, is there any strategy to train new entrepreneurs to introduce digital marketing? Of course, this is something that Dipalia and Suraksha can handle. And a question from Mona Shrestha is, how do you see the need for government agencies to collaborate with private sector on conducive e-commerce policies and data protection? And this is targeted question to Honorable Khan. So we literally have 7 minutes. I would like to provide 1 minute each to each one of you after the questions are raised. And the participants, I would like to really limit yourself. I request you to limit yourself to 1 minute. Shyam Prasad Dahal.
Thank you, Ratnakar ji. Well, thanks. Can you?
Yes, please go ahead,
Yeah.
please.
Thank you, Ratnakar ji. Well, thanks to the key speaker, panelist. It's a very eye-opening session for me also. Actually, let me move to my question. My question, is to Samika ji, and basically this is relates to the challenges in cross-border e-commerce from automation perspective. So what we see that the competent human resources, electronic exchange of data at real time within and outside of the country, and interfacing with the sustainability of different automated systems being used in the regulatory agency within Nepal are the challenges to effectively ensure the cross-border e-commerce environment. What measures do you suggest to mitigate these three challenges? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shyam. Mr. Shyam Dahal. Samika has taken note of the question and she'll respond later. I would now like to invite Mr. Rajan Ratna from UNESCAP, who is doing a lot of good work on e-commerce in South Asia. Mr. Ratna, are you there? Dr. Ratna. Dr. Ratna, sorry, I didn't say doctor, so that's why.
No,
okay.
it's fine. That is not required. But I mean, what do you want me to say?
No, I mean, there's this observation that you wanted to make.
That I just made. I'm sorry, just let me correct my light.
Yeah, sorry.
Because I was just observing and it was very interesting. But, you know, one of these questions came up on, digital marketing and e-commerce thing. And, and Deepali is also here. So we are developing, website for this project, which UNESCAP and EIF is doing. And we are having an e-learning course on digital marketing and e-commerce. It's a basic course. And then we will go for a dedicated training program for women entrepreneurs of South Asia. We have already done 3 national inception workshops. Just because of COVID that we got held up a little bit. But some of you who are there, I think Ratnakar Bhai, I can take the this platform to inform, because I will be informing our partners like Southie and others. On 14th of October, EIF and STAP is also doing with the Global Trade Facilitation Alliance webinar, and there we will be launching this website of this project. So please, we'll invite our partners, and that would be the beginning. And we will definitely come to many of these South Asian entrepreneurs. First focus on women, and then it will open for women and men to gain from the knowledge product which we have developed collectively. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ratna, for your remark. This is well noted. And Mr. Janardhan Baral, would you like to ask the question to Samika, or do you want me to do that?
Thank you, Dr. Adhikari. I have a simple and short question to Samika. Do you see the possibility of growing cross-border e-commerce ecosystem in South Asia soon? That's enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. And Honorable Khan, are you still there? Okay, she's left.
I'm
So,
still here. Yes, I'm responding to a
sorry.
question on the chat. Yes.
Yes. So this is a question from Mona Shrestha. Full disclosure,
Yes.
she happens to be my wife.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So she has a question for you. Can you read that?
Yes, I saw that and I was responding to that in writing. Yes, I'll just say it out loud. So
Sure.
we found out early on in our process, our minister at the time decided that there is no way we're making any e-commerce policy without ensuring that the users of the policy are informed of it in the future. So we decided, we took on 3 large e-commerce houses in Pakistan. One is called Deraz.pk. One is called Yevo.com, which belongs to DHL. And the third one was Food Panda, which is a food delivery service. And this is pre-COVID. This is nearly 2015. And we used to have big meetings every 3 months, but on a day-to-day basis, we used to interact with the private sector vendors, as well as the consumers, to figure out what is the and I think perhaps the most important thing in this entire policy making, strategy making, framework working process is ensure that your businesses know what you're doing. Governments long in this part of the world are in the habit of making policy and then making sure that those who are going to use that policy are informed. So we did the reverse. We're still doing that. They're on board with us. One of our biggest software houses called Pasha, they're working with us. So we've brought on board everyone. Before it was just businesses. Now it is also other stakeholders, whether it's the consumer, whether it is the regulator, because government alone cannot run markets, and it is not the business of the government to run business. So I agree with her that our experience has been that every meeting we've had, and there have been some difficult ones where the private sector told the government flat out that you are wrong. But what we were lucky was that we listened. When they told us we're wrong, we listened. Certainly, most businesses tend to usually ask for tax concessions, but in this case, they were asking for much more. They were asking for ease of doing business, reducing cost of doing business, increasing facilitation. So for us, it was easier to work with them because they gave us the full platform of demands. We asked them for their wish list and they told us. And it was much easier to formulate the policy that way.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khan, Honorable Khan, for being with us and providing response to even the last question that was there. Thank you very much, really appreciate it. I would now like to move to Samika. You have 1 minute to respond to the question that have been raised.
Okay, thank you, Ratnakar.
Sorry
thank
about
you,
that.
Shyam, and also Janardhan. Just to start with Janardhan, yes, I do believe South Asia is very much ready to do cross-border e-commerce. I think the cross-border e-commerce is where there's going to be a lot of value added for producers, because what we are trying to do is basically cut down all the middlemen. So the producer and the customer gets connected. So all the value will be captured at the producer's end, rather than in the middle where people are doing marketing and packaging and all that. So South Asia is, this is an entrepreneurial region. This is a young and enthusiastic youth, the women entrepreneurs. I think we are ready to move forward. So that's one. I think Shyam's question is a difficult one, because I think what we need when we bring the digital solutions, a lot of people forget that the skills or the capacity building is a long haul exercise. It's not just somebody comes and puts some software and just moves away. So I think I would like all countries to take note. When you are bringing digital solutions from elsewhere, please build in a very strong capacity building interoperability systems into your program, because otherwise you will just get the software and then you will not have anybody to work with you to adapt the software to your needs and to help you when things go wrong. I mean, Shyam, Asikuda has been in Nepal for last 20 years, and most of the time our stay in Nepal has been a capacity building exercise. So these are important skills building. Please put it in the package. Thank you.
Thank you, Samika. Thanks a lot. I would like to now provide 1 minute to Pramod to respond to any questions or make his final remark. Mr. Chetri, over to you.
Yeah, I think we have covered well. I think this section was good for us to understand the cross-border, the e-commerce and all. I feel this is answer to many questions that that comes on the business line, but we also need to think when we eliminate the middlemen, I think we are also eliminating a lot of things, the jobs and all. So what will happen to them? I think the innovation is, it's going to change all the aspects. And I think there are always a bilateral discussion between country to country. You know, the payment front is very important. I think that's it from my side. Thank you very much for everyone, for all
Thank
the
you.
panelists.
Thank you. Now I would like to move to Dipali for your 1 minute either response or final thoughts.
Yeah. Thank you. As we discussed before, 57% marketplaces are growing and e-commerce businesses are growing at 35%. So definitely we all have to be online, and that too in a difficult situation like COVID. And as Ms. Shamika told, the e-commerce capacity building. So SCAP with the partnership with the EIF has already taken the first step, and soon we'll be launching e-commerce portal WeSellOnline.org for women entrepreneurs. And there will be basic e-commerce course also will be available, and hands-on training will be given to list their products online. So let us all grow together, and I'm sure there is a very bright future for us in the field of digital and e-commerce. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dipali, now can I invite Suraksha to respond to any question that has been raised, or provide your final remark in 1 minute.
So finally, I'd like to say the COVID-19 pandemic has opened doors for new e-commerce startups, and they are mushrooming, at least I can say for Nepal, and they have reached a wider market currently. However, their existence in the future is questionable because e-commerce requires ample know-how and investment in technology, and startups born now have a high chance of giving up before they can capitalize the opportunity fully. However, this also has a positive side because all these e-commerce startups will educate the consumers about e-commerce and create customer awareness at a very broader level, which we also have been witnessing currently. And finally, I think there will be a very few e-commerce players who have the market share, majority of the market share. And also during the COVID time, digital transformation in context of Nepal has taken, and the three major stakeholders of e-commerce, which are consumers, sellers, and digital payment systems, are utilizing the e-commerce platform and the whole potential for the benefit than ever before. And so the e-commerce industry is moving towards growth, we can say. Having said that, we also at Hulu.com look forward to collaborations and expand in the regional level in some way or the other. And we look forward to a great, a very fast-growing e-commerce industry in Nepal and the whole South Asia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we've come to the end of this conversation. I don't call it a seminar or a deliberation. It was a conversation. We sort of managed to have a fairly interactive discussion, I guess. So what I would like to do, in terms of the wrap up, is to summarize not to summarize, because it's impossible to summarize the rich discussion that we've had. And actually we are still receiving a few questions, such as the one, these are for the future, for any of you to take up, or you can get connected virtually at some point including the possibility of a regional mechanism from Kamalesh Adhikari, who is actually asking this question uh, from Australia, at this point. So I think that needed a response. Maybe we can, discuss it later. I may be able to respond to your question, Kamlesh, privately at some point. Thank you so much for participating. So what I would like to say is basically three things. One, it is important to work collectively in order to make sure that this e-commerce delivers on its promises and we can grow together, uh, as Dipali said. So for that, element of trust is important, element of policy support is important, element of working together, even between the private sector to resolve critical challenges would be important. So that's the first takeaway that I consider, which is important from the perspective of this webinar or conversation. The second one relates to logistics. Logistics are super important. They were important earlier for brick and mortar industry as well. But they are super important in the context of e-commerce being one of the fastest and most efficient mode of delivery. So therefore, it is important. And the point that was made very well by Samika, I want to emphasize that point, that we used to think trade facilitation as a problem of customs. Now customs have upped their game, and they have achieved certain level of maturity in terms of digitizing their transaction, automating their transaction, and providing targeted support to their users. There are other entities that are also involved in the overall ecosystem of trade facilitation, such as postal, such as shipping, authorities, such as quarantine, and other kinds of authorities who would need to up their game and need to come at par with customs in order to support the trade facilitation and logistics. That's the second point. The third point that I would like to make based on the discussion is that it is easy to say that e-commerce offers tremendous potential, but in order to utilize the opportunity that is available there, you need to have the skill, you need to have the knowledge, you need to have the know-how to be able to utilize that. So therefore, various types of skills, whether it's IT related or non-IT skills, soft skills such as marketing, doing the understanding the psychology of the consumers, being able to build some kind of rapport with consumers. So all of that would be important in order to scale up the e-commerce initiative, and which can only be done when the enterprises who are largely working in the domestic sphere start moving regional or moving global, as something that was pointed out very well by all three of you, including Pramod, Suraksha, and Dipali. It is important to think big, move regional, move global, participate in the regional and global value chain, something that our entrepreneurs are capable of doing, and we need the necessary environment that need to be provided by the government and other public actors, such as the international organization, and possibly a role for the think tank also there in order to create that environment. So with these words, I would like to thank all the speakers for your valuable time and your contribution, and would also like to take this opportunity to thank SOTI as well as their co-organizers for providing us this opportunity to share our views, and finally to the participants for your active engagement in this deliberation. Thank you. Over to you, Pushpa, the organizer.
Thank you, Dr. Adhikari. As you rightly put it, it was a very good conversation. I think there were very rich insights, very illuminating ones. I think the inputs are very much applicable for policymakers, researchers, even maybe some of the budding entrepreneurs. And of course, not everything that we know about e-commerce that we could know from this session. There is more to discuss and take these things forward. But these were very, very interesting. Thank you so much for an excellent moderation, Dr. Adhikari. Thank you also to Honorable Chandana Gulzar Khan for the keynote address. Thanks also to our panelists, Shamika Shirimane, Pramod Chetri, Dipali Gotagde, and Suraksha Adhikari. And thank you also to all the participants for a very engaging conversation. We hope you all enjoyed it, you all liked it. We also would like to invite you to our next webinar, the 4th webinar in the series. That's on 2nd of October, coming Friday, where we will be discussing foreign investment outlook in South Asia. So with these words, thank you once again. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.